kids and coaches, it's Professor Lyons with your breakdown. Today we're going to cover the last two IU basketball games. We're going to talk a little bit about the IU football championship game and the celebration. And then we will cover the upcoming rivalry game next Tuesday against Purdue at Indiana. As always, we are brought to you by Game Day Bloomington Men's Health. Game Day Bloomington for all your men's health needs. They focus on testosterone replacement therapy, sexual performance, weight loss, and supplementation. So go visit them if you're having a low energy winter and you want to try to get back into those New Year's resolutions and get that energy up before spring and summer come along. Also brought to you by Shalubi's. Shalubi's certainly a real place. All right, so let's talk the very much anticipated and as I called IU versus number 4 Michigan at Michigan at the Chrysler Center. And it was what we thought it was going to be, to quote, past football coaches and sports memes. IU came out super flat, shot 2 for 11 at one point. As far as baskets go, seems to be a reoccurring trend for the DeVries offense. They come out, they shoot single digits makes versus double-digit misses until they start to warm up. And then finally, when they're down by double digits, 10, 12, 14, 15, they start to try to keep the game close. And then, that buffer that the other team has built has been built up too much, and they're able to sustain and maintain it with little to no threat from IU at any point during the game. The final score was 72 to 86, which doesn't really, in my opinion, capture the absolute shellacking that Indiana did get. Although Indiana played better the second half, we were down 11 at halftime, having been down 17 or 18 at one point in the first half. And honestly, the 14 points that we lost by was pretty much the closest that we got during the second half. They at one point, I think during the second half, were up by almost like 22. And final score, once Michigan subs in their backups and their bench, and Indiana has its starters out there still, chewing up minutes and shooting and making. I think there were 2 threes hit within the last minute by Indiana to close it up 6 more points to get to that 14. It's like, I'm sure that there's a good analogy for it, but the game's already over, and I definitely want to see them keep fighting, but they're already dead at that point. You know what I mean? So it was just kind of putting lace on the pig or putting makeup on the pig at that point. When we look at the half breakdown, Indiana 29 points to Michigan's 40. I mean, IU again just unable to score points in the first half. We go the first 10 minutes with less than 10 points, in the first 10 minutes of the game. And after the opponents have that big of an advantage or that big of a buffer, it's nothing for them to have to coast on it. And the fact that IU's defense gave up 40 points in the first half, your offense isn't working and your defense isn't working at that point. And so what does it take to try to change the system up? I don't know. Coach DeVries has got his plans. He's riding those plans into the ground, into 14-point losses and 11-point deficits at halftime pretty regularly at this point. But yeah, Indiana did have a better second half with 43 points to Michigan's 46 points in the second half. So on paper, it looks like it was a better second half game. It was. The shooting percentages were pulled up from the depths of not being able to shoot for the first 10 minutes of the first half. But like I said again, some of those were in garbage time, and it kind of buffered the stats and put the makeup on the pig. What stands out? IU ice cold from three, shooting 32%, so 11 of 34 shots. And that's our bread and butter if we're going to try with this DeVries style Missouri Valley Conference. It's all about the shooters, and if the shooters aren't shooting, you're done. Free throws still pretty good. No complaints on free throws. 83%, 15 out of 18. A huge improvement from last year, from the last two IU coaches, which free throws were almost an afterthought, and we've raised that to a respectable level there at 83%. I'd like it to be a little bit more, low 90s, but far big of an improvement there. Total rebounds absolutely crushed by Michigan. Indiana's weakness continues to be the offensive boards in the paint. We just don't have the size, we don't have the athleticism, and the guys just aren't tough enough. I mean, that's just what it breaks down. Those are kind of cliches, but I mean, every game it's kind of the same story. The coaches know that, if you isolate the outside shooters, IU can't take it on the inside. The bigs are going to be able to crash down, and then when on the defensive side, there are no bigs for IU. So all you have to do is crash the boards or drive it, and Indiana's pretty much toast. Assists were pretty much even. Blocks, IU 3 to Michigan 6. Steals pretty much even. Turnovers, still double-digit turnovers for IU. The story with Mike Woodson's team, pretty much going back to Tom Crean. Without a set point guard, without somebody that knows what they're doing, the turnovers with double digits just don't win in the Big Ten. You just don't. You got to be disciplined on the ball. You got to be looking at maybe 3-4 turnovers total a game, and that be regular. And I haven't seen an IU team since probably Yogi Ferrell as the point guard with respectable level of turnovers. Points in the paint, 22 to 32, and personal fouls 24 to 15, 24 on the IU side. So absolutely sloppy, absolutely indisciplined. Coach hasn't gotten it through the guys' minds that, the foul game, when you're playing undersized, when you're playing unathleted, when you're playing on the road, you have to take advantage of the variables that you can take advantage of, and fouls are one of those. You got to get the bigger teams in foul trouble. You got to force them into that. You got to force them to sit their bigs so that you can try to take advantage of the mismatch of defense and hopefully open up some of those 3-point shooters. Because if you don't do that, you're going to get a lopsided loss, just like that was handed to us. So, as I said, not unexpected. Pretty much called that. Michigan goes to 17-1. IU drops to 12-7. Right now, what am I anticipating? I'm anticipating pretty much a 500 season at best. I think we'll be hoping to get a 500 season for IU, but we'll see. We'll turn the page to the next game. And the next game had a little bit better results. The unfortunate thing is that it was against an absolutely miserable Rutgers team. Now, the good news story out of the IU-Rutgers game, we hadn't won at Rutgers for a while, since 2018. And for whatever reason, I cannot figure it out. Every time we seemed to play at Rutgers, they were just absolutely great and would pull off some crazy wins. And they've just been a bane. It's really odd. I've noticed, Northwestern used to do this to us a lot about 10 years ago, where the program would be okay, not terrible, but okay. But for some reason, you just could not beat them. No matter what the team composition was, what kind of a run or streak you were on, and it's just crazy. And Rutgers was like that up until this game. And so you're talking about, 9 seasons, the better part of a decade, where Rutgers just absolutely owned IU, and it was crazy. Rutgers wasn't making the tournament. IU did just make the tournament, but going back to 2020, we had some pretty decent teams, and it was just kind of crazy that always seemed to be the bane, the hill that we could not get over. Looking down at it, Indiana got off to a hot start. As I said, compared to the Michigan game, you go 2 for 11 versus going, 50% shooting, you're going to at least be in the game, if not winning the game. So first half, Indiana had almost 50 points, 47 on the road against Rutgers, up by 15 at half. That's something we haven't done for a while. But the defense stood up for Rutgers. The shooting went a little cold in the second half, only scoring 35, and then luckily Rutgers' offense also stalled a bit, and they only scored 27 for a final score of 82-59. Looking at the stats, this is one of the first games that I've noticed where coach has started actually using a little bit more of the bench. So one thing I hadn't mentioned that was an overall trend for a majority of the last games, and a majority, I would say a good 15 to 16 of the last games, coach sticks with basically the starters the whole game. And so you're looking at Sam Alexis, Tucker DeVries, Connor Enright, Lamar Wilkerson, and Nick Dorn getting 33 minutes, 36 minutes, 37 minutes, and it's the breakup then is really only Reed Bailey, Trent Sisley, Tatum Conaway, and in this game somebody that I hadn't seen get minutes before, Josiah Miles. And so you look down at the rest of our roster, and I got it that you want to stick, but we have no platoon. We have no platoon style subbing. We have our 5 starters, and like, damn the torpedoes, we stick with them. And if they have to come out because of foul trouble, they're out for maybe like 2 or 3 minutes, and then they're back in. And so DeVries hedges on the side of somebody gets in foul trouble the first half. He keeps playing them. It hasn't, to this point, other than Wilkerson maybe in the last game against Sam Alexis in the Michigan game, it hadn't come to a huge issue. And against this Rutgers team that was only 9-11 going in, it didn't come to a huge issue. But it very well could and probably will at some point this season. What you're looking at as far as, you like to see Alexis with double-digit rebounds, Tucker DeVries with double-digit rebounds, 22 points, Lamar Wilkerson top scorer with 27, Nick Dorn with 23. So the right guys are scoring, and the right guys that are getting rebounds are getting rebounds. What I don't like to see, and when we look at, again, three-pointer percentage just up a barely 4.5% over the last game. And so we're 15 of 35. So IU is going to shoot 30 to 35, and I would actually say 30 to 40, maybe not 40, 30 to 38 threes a game. And, our percentage at 33, 38% to 40%, if we're going to be shooting that much and the offense is based around that, we've got to try to get that up. Free throws, 100%. Awesome. Love to see it. Total rebounds, we out-rebounded them. We had double their assists. We had double their blocks. 1 over the steals. We kept the turnovers to 4. So just like I said against Michigan, I got it, Rutgers is no Michigan this season. But playing disciplined with the ball, over-exaggerating, crisp passes, ball handling, good choices, decision-makings in transition, all those things that lead to turnovers. You got to get it right against the team that's the worst in the league so that you can then use that momentum going forward to test it against a better team like we're going to see with Purdue this week. So love to see the turnovers down, love to see the free throws at 100%. Like, not love the 3-point percentage going up, but only by 4%. And we're still shooting, like I said, 30 threes a game, 30 plus threes a game, which is interesting. Personal fouls, 10 more than Rutgers for the whole game. 15 IU fouls versus 5 for Rutgers. So Rutgers came in playing pretty disciplined basketball, and IU still giving up double digits when they really didn't need to. So it still shows some of that immaturity in decision making. It still shows some of that lack of ability to control the defensive hands down in the paint when we're on defense. Coach Rivers got to tighten that up because it is not going to bode well for us moving forward. So IU moves to 13-7, and Rutgers falls to 9-11. So upcoming, we have the Purdue Boilermakers versus IU at Bloomington. So what can I say? Well, let's start with some of the intangibles. They're playing at Assembly. The kids are back. It's a rivalry game. Do I anticipate IU playing up? Yes. Do I anticipate IU winning? No. So I think that, and this is where I wanted to come in with, not focusing on football, but trying to give a bit of like what campus is like right now, because, that plays into the intangibles, plays into the crowd, plays into everything as far as, the psychology of what's going on. And so there's just this weekend, yesterday actually, IU hosted the outdoor at the stadium, at Memorial Stadium, the championship parade, and they did different little games and stuff with the football team, and they let them thank the crowd and give speeches and all that kind of stuff. It was great for IU fans. They waited outside in the like minus 12 degrees with wind chilled and snow, to get there. There were multiple signings and meet and greets during the week with, Omar Cooper. Fernando was at Dick's Sporting Goods. There's tons of stuff on the internet about it. The football the football team is, reaping the spoils. They're enjoying their triumph and the laurels of having won the game, and so they're on kind of their press, media tour and all that around the local area of Bloomington, which is awesome. It raises the spirits. I wish that something like that could have happened while I was at school. I would have been going to those things and standing in line for hours and hours to meet the guys and get some stuff signed and whatnot. And so that really raises the the joy level of a lot of people in Bloomington. And that does transition. And so what you see is that, we're not having a great IU basketball season, but the fans are fans of the school, right? And so they're going to want to carry that good sentiment, that good attitude, that positive attitude and reflection to up to the basketball game, that the basketball team that's struggling, and especially against Purdue, right? Especially against Purdue. And so I see, this probably being the first, maybe not sellout, but packed game as far as the students go and as far as the crowd goes, because as long as the weather's not terrible, I double checked. It's a Tuesday game. As long as no more snow and the wind stays down, so that the highway, the Department of Transportation can clean the highways off. I don't think it's going to get postponed or delayed or canceled or anything like that. So I think the game is happening, and because I think the road and the weather is going to be better, I think the fans are going to travel well. They're going to carry some of that post-championship sentiment with them. And I think it's going to be, as it should be, a very IU heavy crowd and a very positive and cheering crowd, which is going to give us, that home field advantage that we desperately need, and that Assembly Hall was annually known for as being one of the harder places in basketball to play. But what does that equate to on the road? Well, Purdue's the exact opposite. They have IU has everything to gain by winning and kind of selling out and putting themselves out there, getting the crowd into it and everything. And Purdue is coming off a loss at home against a ranked Illinois team. So Purdue's going to probably drop down into double-digit ranking. They need to stop the losses and ensure that a streak doesn't continue. So Purdue is playing, and IU would be a bad loss for Purdue this season. So they're absolutely looking to not just stop the losses or prevent a losing streak, but also make a statement. And no team would they rather make a statement against other than their rival, which means they're coming in town for blood. They want to stop us. They want to get all that aggression out of IU winning the national championship. They want to, black and gold themselves from the fans that were cheering for the football team that were out there, and they're going to come to town for blood. And I think Matt Painter's team is not only going to be prepared, he's going to have watched film, and this being the first meeting between DeVries and Painter, I don't think it's going to be good. I think bloodbath. I think IU is going to play up. I do think that's going to happen just because of it's a rivalry game. But Purdue's just a better ball club, and it'd be the same thing as a Purdue football fan having to admit that IU football is just a better ball club. Like, Purdue's better this year. I don't think they're going to be making the national championship like they did last year, but they're better than IU this year. That's for sure. And so, the best hope for me is that IU continues some of those things that I just pointed out from the Rutgers game. Control the turnovers. We've got to get better on the fouls. I don't think we're going to get better on the fouls on this game because of the athleticism and size that we're going to be going up against. Fouls are going to probably be part of our defensive plan. I think that we need to share some more minutes with some other guys off the bench and give our starters a little bit more of a rest and not rely on them for every shot. I think that that's a good place to be if you have guys that you can rely on, but we're too inconsistent. We're leaving starters out there that will go 0 for 5 before they make a basket. And so, set a guy down, give him a couple minutes to reset, give a couple minutes, show, what one of our 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys can do, and then put the guy back in, right? We're going to get crushed on boards. We did not play well against a Michigan team. We're not there. We just don't have the size, the instinct, and the talent to beat Purdue on the board. So that's going to have to go into our game plan. How do we mitigate that, and how do we adjust? How do we adapt? Right now we just don't have the size to say we're going to go in there and win the board game, because we're not. So how can we win around that is basically the point I'm getting after. So, what do I see? I didn't look at I don't think, because the game's so far out, the over, the point spread, whatnot. One of the things that surprised me was the point spread for Michigan was 15.5, and the game came in at 14. So, now granted, 6 of those points were scored by 2 threes in the last minute, but and then it would have been 20. They would have lost by 20. But I think IU might cover. I think Painter will probably end up pulling his starters pretty early. Probably, I just don't see this game going down to the wire or anything where he needs to have his starters in it necessarily. And I think it's just part of that, like, sportsmanship disrespect where it's like, yeah, I don't even have to keep my starters into play here. Painter's not Signetti. He's not going to, play everything down to the wire. And, of course, this isn't football. But the last thing I really hope is that the guys who are going to hang around for another year learn what this rivalry is, eat the loss, and let it fuel the hatred for Purdue. And I hope DeVries starts to pick up that, that style of game that Purdue is going to come in and play. Those types of recruits that Purdue has, that's what it takes to win in the Big Ten. And if he doesn't adapt to that and doesn't learn these lessons, I think it's going to be, a short tenure for Coach DeVries at IU. And the additional really unfortunate thing is, now that there's no football to pay attention to, and each day is going to move IU, an IU fan base further and further away from that football high, all eyes are going to start being on the basketball team. And if the basketball team continues to underperform, it's going to start being, the fans are going to, if they haven't started already, the fans are going to start getting loud at him and not with him. And that's not a state, a place that you want to be in as a head coach, especially of IU. That's going to do it for us today. Stay warm out there. Stay safe. Don't drive if you don't have to. If you do have to drive, be smart about it. And I will catch you on the next breakdown out here.